Today in this episode, I want to travel into memory lane of the 90s when I was just a kid in school slash high school, and I spent most of my time watching cartoons and enjoying lots of those cartoons. The 90s was kind of important of my life because most of the cartoons had a great quality both in Disney and Warner Brothers. Let's say that it is that the 90s is well known as the renaissance of animation. And one of those television cartoons that I really enjoy are the ones that Warner Brothers gave us, like Tiny Toon Adventures, Animaniacs, and so on. But for now, I just want to specifically ride into memory lane of one show that I remember enjoying it as a kid and decided to watch all episodes up to this, just to remember that it's gonna have a special event this week. And that show is none other than Freakazoid. Freakazoid. Just in case, I've been hearing that March 15 on Facebook, there's gonna be a Freakacon event where they're gonna make a live video of two of the main people who work on Freakazoid, and they're gonna ask questions about the show. Technically they're kind of celebrating this show. Freakazoid, huh? When I remember that I was introduced to the show when I finally had cable on my house. We had the WB channel where, well, I usually enjoy every Monday through Friday Tiny Toon Adventures and Animaniacs. Then we had a lot of those commercials that every Saturday we had this new show that kind of really looked like in the Animaniacs style, but as a superhero genre. And yeah, that was Freakazoid. And it came one of these days that I finally decided to watch it. And I enjoy it. Freakazoid became one of my big three of that time. My big three were Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, and Freakazoid of the Warner Brothers genre. And boy, man, that this show, now I can see why it still holds up to cult status up to this date. Because the humor in it is, well, it's a little bit more adult but less cynical than, well, the other shows. Freakazoid became a little bit of a parody of the superhero genre. For today's standards, I will say that Freakazoid is what will happen if My Hero Academia didn't take it too seriously and it decided to make a spoof out of it. And for those who doesn't know, let's talk about what Freakazoid is about. Freakazoid's story is very simple. It's about Freakazoid is this blue guy with a red suit with an F. And he has a kind of like a mascara and a really top freezy tall hair. The point is that Freakazoid is the superhero identity of a nerdy kid called Dexter Douglas. What happened is that this kid was a geek. He really loved to go into computers, on the internet, and all this stuff, and, well, he is kind of like the stereotypical of a nerd, the 90s type of nerd that usually cartoons made fun of. So what happened is that this kid, on Christmas, gets a chip in order to make the computer run faster. And unfortunately, the company, they didn't realize that this chip had a bug in the system. The bug involves that if you, I think it was kind of like you run the terminal, the internet terminal, and you put a series of complicated codes, and then ended up with delete. Apparently the computer opens itself a portal to the cyberspace. So anyone who enters the code will be sucked into cyberspace, and because all the information gets sucked into the person who input the code, it will turn them into, well, what the show says, a Freakazoid. So technically, Dexter turns into this character named Freakazoid, well, he does have his powers. He can run fast. He can go into. He is a little bit. How can I say? He's strong, but unfortunately, he's a little bit of a wacko. He's a crazy lunatic that sometimes breaks the fourth wall. But don't worry, he's not a psychopath. His heart is in the right place, and that's the gist of the story. The other episode, almost actually all the episodes, is just him involving solving crimes, or sometimes just chilling out, doing something that is not superhero related. But don't worry, it always has to go against villain because it is a superhero. It is a superhero show, just in case. I do remember that the show actually has some really weird and clever running gags that you find. Like, for example, one of the biggest running gags that the show has is that, well, Freakazoid has this cyber speed that he uses. Well, he can't fly, but every time when he goes from one place to another, he technically should just go running around normally while extending his arms and go like, kind of like a kid trying to play superhero or Superman in that case. Also, there is this running gag that one of Freakazoid's best friend is actually the sergeant of the police. He's called Sergeant Cosgrove. This guy is probably the nicest policeman you could ever see on a show. No police brutality, no nonsense, everything. And he just treats Freakazoid like he's kind of like his own son. But every time he's like, "Hey, Freakazoid, how about if we go grab some ice cream?" "Oh yeah, ice cream. And they just go for ice cream, and that's where he tells the intel of some crime or something like that. But or other times he's like, "Hey, Freakazoid, I got tickets for a mud bath." "A mud bath! Let's go. They always do that in every single episode. In almost every single episode, Cosgrove appears. There's what else? We also have other characters like Dexter's family, who is this stereotypical airheading parents with the mother who is kind of overly happy, the father is kind of a little bit of no nonsense, and the bully big brother. We also have Freakazoid's girlfriend, Stephanie. Yeah, I think that was her name. Yeah, Steph or Stephanie, whatever they want to call her. And it's a superhero show without villains. Most of the villains are how can I say, are random here and there. But the ones that they use the most is usually his nemesis, which is called the Lobe, which is technically a guy with a big brain, let's say. I think this guy could have been called the Brain if it wasn't used in another Warner Brothers character. There's also this caveman with intellect. What was it called? Cave Boy, I think it was called. There's Cobra Queen, who she kind of scares me because she controls snakes. And one of the semi-recurring villains, which technically I think it is one of the most threatening villains that Freakazoid had to deal, is this guy named Gutierrez. They call it Gutierrez, but they call it Gutierrez, but they spell Gutierrez, whatever. But it's this eye patch guy who he was the president of the company that sold that chip, and well, he just wanted more power, and he wanted the code, and well, he did access the code, and I'm not gonna dare to spoil what happens. But let's say that he is a villain that sometimes you laugh of how campy this guy is. Oh, and by the way, he's voiced by Ricardo Montalban. Given his really, how can I say, phony Spanish accent that he has, that's kind of I remember him. Oh yeah, there's also this guy called Candle Jack, who there was this episode that once you speak his name, he appears and tie you up. And so technically that's much of the cast that I can remember of the show. So what about the episodes? I will say that Freakazoid is mostly remembered on season 1 because season 1 technically was more of a variety show, but with superheroes. It had segments, it had weird stuff. But then in the second season, the show kind of asked for Freakazoid Center episodes more. So it becomes more like a superhero genre. And they kind of forget the segmented episodes, which it's not bad, but it kind of felt like a shame because the other segments were totally entertaining in season 1. Here's some of the episodes that I do remember the most. My first episode of Freakazoid, the one that introduced me to the series, was the segmented one where, let's say that an alien comes, and this guy is called Moron, and he's always saying, "I am Moron. I have a message for you." He kind of sounds like Barney from The Simpsons. And then sometimes the segments are cut with apparently this woman saying, talking about the censorships, but she's saying, don't worry, they're cartoons, they're always gonna be fine. But during all those segments, she's always hit by an anvil, because apparently the creators of Freakazoid kind of hates those whiny censorship guys who tries to censor them from their good Looney Tunes-esque humor, which I am 100% with them. with the creators, not the censorship. This guy can. There's also 2 segments that involving this apparently British episode, the British superhero called Lord Bravery. This one as a kid I never understood, but then when I began to rewatch the episode, I kind of began to see why he was so funny. Because this guy with a Monty Python-esque talk, and the banter in which they talk in one way or another is hilarious. Another episode that I remember from further episodes is that there are 2 episodes that introduce another superhero called the Huntsman, which has this kind of long and expositionary introduction, only for the episode only lasted like a minute or so, because it's just him going to the police department and saying, hey, I need a job, I need to catch criminals. Don't worry, nothing's happening, sorry, just go to the aquarium or something like that. Dude, if you want a job catching criminals, there's Detroit. Another episode that I remember, somehow they wanted to pitch this other group of heroes that is a parody to Gargoyles, which is called the Lawn Gnomes. We had Freakazoid commenting on it. That was neat. There is also an episode which I kind of, personally, I find it the worst episode in Freakazoid. But I'm not saying that it's bad, it's just that it was from a show that I technically didn't care. The show is, it was called Danger Boy or something like that. Danger Ben. I kind of remember. I kind of forgot the name, but it is a parody to this Hanna-Barbera show called Johnny Quest. And honestly, I never cared for Johnny Quest. Even as a child, I thought that Johnny Quest was kind of boring. I kind of felt that the art style was dry or something like that. Except the New Adventures of Johnny Quest. That one was awesome. What else I do remember from Freakazoid? Yes, probably one of my favorite of all the episodes, and the one that it was stuck on my head for a long, long time. When I remember our Freakazoid, there is one episode that I always come back, and that is the Relax-O-Vision episode. The Relax-O-Vision episode it kind of treats itself like a normal episode of Freakazoid, but before the episode begins, we have this guy who is kind of, again, the censorship guy, but this time played by the great Ben Steen. And he's just saying that in order to protect our children, we are gonna give you Relax-O-Vision. Technically, what it is that whenever violent scene is coming up during the whole story, it is replaced with some kind of a clip of a live action whatever, something soothing that kind of makes you relax. I mean, it is a video of a beach or butterflies or kids playing on an amusement park, and it has this silly music that it always cracked me up. And this episode, it became my most memorable of all the Freakazoid episodes. Actually, there's another memorable Freakazoid episode that I always remember. And that was actually my second Freakazoid episode I ever saw. And that is the one in which we got the mother of all the fanboys. And yeah, it involves this chubby kid that I forgot to mention. It is a chubby kid who is called Fanboy. And when I mean he's the mother of all the fanboys, he has everything. Overweight, acne-ridden, glasses, and he annoys the hell of everyone. He just, whenever he sees a star or a superhero or something like that, he just kind of becomes like the plague, and he just begins to talk about trivia that he knows and all this stuff because he just wants to be their friend, to the point that it is possessive and creepy. And yeah, all the characters try to run away from him. I mean, in that episode, he just follows George Takei, and then he's stuck with Freakazoid during almost the whole episode, and the only way Freakazoid had to get rid of him is by just lure him to see Mark Hamill. So pretty much those are two of those episodes that I fondly remember from Freakazoid. The second season also has some highlights, but it's not as as crazy as the first season, because again they just remove the segmented Saturday Night Live style of heroes, different superheroes apart from Freakazoid doing their own stuff, but still with Freakazoid in it. The second season they just concentrated on Freakazoid, which is fine by me. The charm was still there. But there were some episodes that I felt more compelled than many of the others. Probably my favorite episode of the second season is when Dexter has a date with Steph, and he has when he turns into Freakazoid, he has difficulties turning back into human, because if I could be a little bit of a nitpick on Freakazoid, is that we need more about the life of Dexter. I mean, I know that we enjoy Freakazoid because he's the crazy guy and the lunatic that it is kind of charming to watch. But watching a little bit of the duality between Freakazoid and Dexter will have a little bit more appealing. Maybe for me, because I kind of began to relate with Dexter. You know, a computer nerd. I was a video game junkie, and when it's about, and well, let's say that in that era, you're a geek. You're always kind of like the underdog, let's say. And it only, and at least Dexter had the power to turn into Freakazoid by just screaming freak, freak out, and of course Freakazoid just say freak in to switch back and forth between Dexter and Freakazoid. We didn't get much of that, but you know, I'll leave the actors be. Oh, speaking of running gags, I kind of forgot one running gag that is kind of mesmerizing. One of the biggest running gag of the show is that in almost at least one frame or a little while of every single episode of Freakazoid, they had this tiny little guy who looks a little bit creepy. He's kind of like this pointy-headed, frizzly, long-necked, short guy who always has the same expression. He's like this. He appears in one frame. He appears around the corner. It has a name. Hold on a second. I got it here because Wikipedia has it easy to see. Yes, the guy is called Emmett Nervent. And boy, you know what? I can show you. I can show you the guy. Here it is. Is this guy. This guy appears in almost every single episode, and I am curious. I want to ask the creators, who designed this guy? What is the purpose of this guy? Where did he come from? And you know what? He's not important. He's just there. But this guy, he became one of the biggest things that I remember of Freakazoid every time I remembered him. And what else I can tell you about it? I think that's all I have to say. For me, this is just me remembering Freakazoid on memory lane in commemoration that this Freakacon will appear. So I hope that one of these days, if Animaniacs can have a reboot, why not Freakazoid? We are in 2010, which most shows are having revivals. Some for the good, some for the bad, some for the okay. So I don't see no reason to give Freakazoid a second try. But we'll see what happens. So Freakazoid, thank you for giving a little bit of a smile on my face during the 90s. So with that, I'm out.